The story was so hard to research because what happened in 2015 at an ordinary hospital nursery turned into a crime scene. In this true crime story, we're delving into the neonatal ward of the Countess of Chester Hospital in Britain, where a terrifying mystery unfolded into a full-scale murder investigation. Hi there, my name is Cheryl Hewson, and in this first part of a two-part series, we'll uncover how 7 innocent lives were lost and a further 6 were left on the brink. The parents of these babies must have gone through unimaginable hell as they watched their healthy newborns fight for their lives. But the real question that haunted everyone who worked at the neonatal unit was whether this was a series of tragic deaths or something far more sinister. We're going to explore how a series of seemingly unconnected tragedies in the neonatal ward were actually part of a disturbing pattern that shocked the entire world. This tragic story begins on the 8th of June 2015 at 8 p.m. Everything on the ward that night seemed normal as nurse Lucy Letby started her night shift. She was assigned 2 healthy twin boys, and at the same time the on-duty paediatrician clocked off for the night. Exactly 30 minutes later, one of the boys deteriorates rapidly, and Lucy is seen by another nurse standing frozen as if captivated by what's unfolding in front of her. Letby leaps into action as she recognises the seriousness of the child's conditions. And of course, doctors respond immediately, but they spot something they've never seen before: an unusual blue and white mottling on the child's skin. The very next day, the child's paediatrician was shocked to hear of his death because the last time she saw him, he was in perfect health, and now he was dead. It was later determined that air had been injected into the child's bloodstream, which caused an embolism, subsequently causing his death. Naturally, the parents wanted to stay with the remaining twin, but they were persuaded by nurse Lucy Letby to go home and get some rest, and that's exactly what they did. But this was just the beginning, because barely one day after losing the first twin, the second twin collapses in the nursery. Now remember, these are 2 healthy twins at the start on 8th of June. By now, the parents must be racked with grief as they heard the news of the possibility of losing their second child. Thankfully, the infant survived, but the doctors did notice she had a rash that was eerily like the one that the first twin had as before his death. And there was another common factor. Can you guess what that was? Because days after the death of child A, another infant takes a turn for the worse, right after his nurse leaves the room. And no, it's not nurse Lucy Letby. Strangely, when the alarm sounds, the nurse rushes back in, and it was Lucy Letby standing next to the monitor with the alarm blaring. The nurse told Letby to focus on her patients, but Letby just could not let go. And if that wasn't enough, the nurse shift leader said she practically had to drag Letby from the family room while the resuscitation team fought to save the child's life. Disturbingly, the parents of the infant recount a chilling detail. They remember a nurse who they believe was Letby bringing in a ventilator and who said to them, "You've said your goodbyes. Do you want me to put him in here?" And this happened while everybody else was trying to save his life. The parents of child C were in disbelief, and sadly, the child could not be saved. This is another blow for the nursery. It was later determined that child C died of an excessive amount of air being pumped into its stomach. What would you do if you were one of the medical staff witnessing these events? But it happened again, and this time it was an infant girl who collapsed 3 times. After frantic efforts to save her, she sadly passed away. Doctors again noticed a strange discoloration on the child's skin. And another detail emerged that was quite unsettling. The child's mother remembers Lucy Letby hovering around the family just as before the child deteriorated. By now, the staff in the neonatal unit must have been thinking that there was something amiss. And they did, because Dr. Stephen Berreley, the head consultant of the neonatal unit, and others undertook a review of the deaths of babies A, B and C. Alison Kelly, the director of nursing, was told there was one common factor in all the deaths, and that was none other than nurse Lucy Letby. Shockingly, Alison Kelly did nothing. Then by August, another infant was lost. This time it involved premature twins, each weighing less than 1.4 kgs, or 3 pounds. On the 3rd of August, child E's mother walks into the nursery and she notices he has fresh blood around his mouth. No nurse in sight, except for one. You guessed it, Lucy Letby, who was standing right next to the incubator. The mum described Lucy as eerily calm, not doing anything, even though the situation appeared to be an emergency. It seemed to the mother that Letby was putting on a show of being busy without helping. Letby just simply brushed it off, and she said, well, that was from the feeding tube. But child E continued to deteriorate in the neonatal unit and just as later died of a massive blood clot. Unforgivably, and despite the substantial loss of blood, no autopsy was performed. Events were by no means over because one night later, child E's twin, F, deteriorates. The infant's blood sugar levels plummet as his heart rate surges. This is dangerous territory for anyone to be in, let alone a vulnerable newborn. This time, and thankfully to a series of tests, doctors are able to save him. However, the tests reveal an excessively high amount of insulin in his system. This is bizarre because insulin was never prescribed for child E. This was no mistake or accident, and for one of the doctors, all the signs were starting to point towards one person, but others disagreed because Lucy Letby was not looking after child F, although she was in the same room caring for another infant. But 1 month later, tragedy strikes the neonatal unit again. This time, it's child G, who was born 15 weeks prematurely and was arguably one of the most vulnerable babies in the unit at the time. She collapsed and was transferred to Arrow Park Hospital, and then once she recovered, she was returned to the neonatal unit. 5 days later, child G collapses again, this time after Lucy Letby fed her. But it was the force of child G's vomit that surprised everybody. It was so great that it hit the chair next to the cot. Not only that, but her heart rate and oxygen levels just dropped off the scale. This was extremely unusual for a child who was supposedly well again. It was later discovered that Letby tried to cover her tracks by deliberately changing the child's temperature on the observation chart. Was this a blatant attempt to make it look like coincidence with another colleague who also fed child G milk? At the trial, an expert witness concluded that the only explanation for such extraordinary vomiting was if she had received far more milk than she should have down her feeding tube, and that could not have happened accidentally. Adding to the unsettling details, a nurse assisting Letby discovered the machine monitoring child G's vitals was switched off. One wonders if this was just a mere oversight or something more calculated. Another unsettling detail emerged because the day that child G first collapsed was the original due date of her birth. Was this just a cruel twist of fate, or could it hold more sinister significance? There were another 2 attempts to take child G's life on the 21st of September, and thankfully the child pulled through, but is now severely disabled. She is blind and has cerebral palsy and has progressive scoliosis. She also needs round-the-clock care, all because of Lucy Letby. It just doesn't end there because child I also collapsed for a second time. So what happened here? Well, Letby said to one of her co-workers that child I looked pale, despite the fact that they were standing in the doorway at the time, looking into the darkened neonatal unit. The nurse who cared for child I turned on the light, only to discover the child was not breathing. It was later determined that child I died after Letby injected air into the girl's stomach. Child I's mother said that at the time of death, Letby just smiled as she bathed her dead body and offered to take photos of the dead child. That is just bizarre. Letby sent a sympathy card to Child I's parents on the day of the funeral. By this time, there were 5 unexplained deaths in the neonatal unit in just over 5 months. How could the hospital miss these warning signs? Well, one clinician didn't miss the signs, and there were a few others who joined him as well. Dr. Beerley became extremely worried after child I's death, and after another staffing review, Letby was found to be present at all the unexpected deaths. But this is not the end of the story, because the hospital's response to these events took a surprising turn, because another consultant, Dr. Ravi Jaraman, escalated his concerns to management, but was told not to make a fuss, and Letby was allowed to continue in her nursing role in the neonatal unit. Well, by this time, Dr. Beerley must have been really frustrated. He ordered a thematic review, which found several common links to the 9 unusual deaths since 2015. Letby's name is linked to the deaths, and Beerley calls an urgent meeting with executives. The meeting, however, does not take place until May 2016. It seems to me that the hospital executive were just burying their heads in the sand, although they did in April 2016 move Letby to the day shift because of the suspicions that were mounting around her, because on the 9th of April, within hours of each other, 2 twin boys suddenly suffer a collapse in the neonatal unit. Child L's insulin levels were at the top of the range, and then later, child M's heart rate and respiratory rate suddenly dropped. An expert witness at the trial thought the most likely cause of M's collapse was air being pumped into his bloodstream. M survived but now suffers from brain damage. At the time, it was observed that child M's and L's deterioration occurred in almost identical ways to that of child E and F. The situation is similar in that it involves twins, and one of each set of the twins were injected with insulin and the other with air. Both child M and L survived. By now, it's May 11, 2016, and Dr. Beerley meets with the hospital management to raise concerns about Letby after the release of an assurance document which sets out why Letby is believed not to be the cause of the unusual deaths. The document suggests that it's the NHS service that could be to blame for the spike in deaths in the neonatal unit. The report concludes there's no evidence whatsoever against Letby other than coincidence. Understandably, Dr. Beerley thinks his concerns have been dismissed without proper consideration. What do you think? Because what happens next is unbelievable. Just weeks after the assurance document, there is another attempted murder by Letby, this time by forcing a nasogastric tube down a newborn infant's throat. Others heard the screams of the infant and must have wondered what was going on. The background to this incident is that the infant was born with a condition known as haemophilia, which can result in excessive bleeding, even from a very small cut. Letby uses the condition of haemophilia as a cover to explain away the excessive bleeding. By now, it's June 23, 2016, and child O was a perfectly healthy child murdered by Lucy Letby after she returned from holiday. Initially, when child O became unwell, another nurse suggested that he be moved to Nursery 1, which is where all the sickest of children are treated. But Letby opposed the suggestion, and child O collapsed 2 hours later under her care. After this, child O suffered another 2 collapses and subsequently died 3 hours later. This surprised the lead consultant, who thought that child O should have responded better to resuscitation events. However, the post-mortem revealed that child O had higher than normal amounts of gas in his body. Later, the police would allege that Letby murdered child O by injecting air into his nasal gastric tube. And get this, 13 minutes after child O's death, Letby was feeding his triplet brother, child P, who was also soon to collapse. So what happened in this case? Well, she pumped air into child P's stomach via a nasogastric feeding tube when feeding him at 6 p.m. This caused the baby's diaphragm to collapse. As doctors and nurses prepared child O to go to another hospital, Letby said, "He's not leaving here alive, is he?" And that's 13 minutes following the death of his brother. She had made similar remarks when child C fatally collapsed a year earlier. Thankfully, the death of child P marked the end of Lucy Letby's killing spree, because by June 24, 2016, Dr. Beerley phones the duty executive Karen Rees in sheer desperation and tells her to remove Letby from the neonatal ward. Rees insists that Letby is safe to work and she's happy to take responsibility for anything that happens to other babies if Letby's involved. And at the end of 2016, Letby was finally moved to a clerical role from the neonatal ward. And guess what? The suspicious collapses stopped. On July 3, 2018, police arrest Lucy Letby, alleging 8 counts of murder and 6 counts of attempted murder after a year-long investigation. But the truth that was uncovered was far more devastating than what anyone could have imagined. Well, this wraps up the first part of our deep dive into this chilling story about Lucy Letby and the shocking events at the Countess of Chester Hospital. The failures by hospital administrators and the crucial intervention by Dr. Beerley and others have left us with so many unanswered questions. In the next part, we'll dig deeper into Letby's life and explore some of the motives that could be behind her terrifying acts. If you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to stay tuned for the next part. In the meantime, feel free to share your thoughts and questions below in the comments section. Until next time, take care.